A big thank you as always to EA for being the sponsors of today's video.
You're the last one. Complete the mission.
Let's do this.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get in.
Good gravy.
Wait, you're telling me you want to improve more?
Solo queuing's too much for you. SBMM is hurting you?
You want to get your first Rampart kill of the season?
Grab your mash!
Fine, listen, I'll do my best, okay? Yes people, how are we all doing? It's your boy Ashton. I hope you're all having a fantastic day as always. In today's video we're going to be looking at the ways in which you can improve instantly on Apex Legends Season 7. I'm going to be giving you various different tips in different areas of the game so that you can improve as quickly as possible and up your game and play a little bit better. So if you do go on to enjoy today's video, make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content of course. And without further ado, let's just jump straight into the tips. Okay then guys, so in today's video we're going to be focusing on 4 different areas that you can improve your game in for Season 7, and hopefully there are going to be tips in here for you more advanced players as well as some of the newer players as well, so there'll be tips for everyone to help improve over the course of the season. So in today's video we're going to be focusing on your aiming, your movement, your decision making and solo queuing tips as well, so hopefully a little bit of something for everyone. Starting off with some tips to help improve your aim, the first tip I've got for you guys is to experiment playing with no look dead zone. This is something that I recently changed in my settings menu and is something I will never turn back on. Now, warning, if you do already have some stick drift on your controller, I don't recommend turning this setting off as this is something that counteracts stick drift quite a lot, so if you do have quite a lot of stick drift, perhaps even turn your look dead zone up, but if you're just having a normal controller that doesn't really have any stick drift, you can turn it down, especially if you're playing on a classic response curve, because that's also going to help as well. But if you don't have stick drift, if you turn off your look dead zone, you'll notice that all of a sudden you do have a little bit of stick drift, and that is something you do have to put up with as a consequence of turning off the no look dead zone. But honestly, it's worth it in my opinion, because what this does is it means that every input you put onto your right analog stick will translate in game, because basically what the look dead zone is there's a small area of the stick that if you move it, if it's not quite put in enough input, so if you're not exactly putting enough force into the stick, then the game won't register it as movement. And honestly, this helps a lot if you turn it off, because you can fine-tune your aiming very, very precisely. Ever since I turned off look dead zone, I found my mid-range to long-range beams have actually been a lot better. I've been hitting a ton more damage more consistently, and I know for a fact I'm never going to turn look dead zone back on for as long as I have no stick drift. A question I've had in the comment section a few times is how to improve your Kraber shot in Apex, since finding a Kraber is a pretty rare occurrence, and when you do get one, you definitely don't want to be wasting those shots, and it's really tough to hit moving targets as well, so it's a really hard gun to learn how to use. Personally, this is how I learned how to use the Kraber a little bit more effectively, and it's probably not the best way of learning how to use the Kraber, but doing this has certainly helped me, and I hope that it's a drill that can help you too. So what I do is I pick up the Kraber in the firing range, and I'll try and line up my shot to the head as quickly as possible and take the shot as quickly as possible. You don't want to be spending too much time lining up your shots with a Kraber, because of course in game, if someone is stood still, then they're likely to start moving at any point, and you need to take that shot as soon as you line it up correctly. Now that doesn't mean you want to be rushing your shot, you definitely need to be hitting it, but making sure that you take the shot as soon as possible is a really important factor in being a good player with the Kraber. So running around and lining up the shot and taking it as soon as it's lined up correctly is something that I do a lot, and this is something that helps me personally. Whether or not it helps you, I'm not sure, but hopefully it helps at least one of you with your Kraber shots a little bit. Now when it comes to solo queuing on Apex, for me there are 2 legends which stand out above the rest for the best solo queue experience. Of course one of those is going to be Wraith, because she has the smallest hitbox, which means she's going to be the hardest to hit and the biggest nuisance for enemies to try and kill. And of course the second one for me is going to be Horizon, because her tactical ability currently in its current state is absolutely amazing. Having a lift that can go so high and having it on a 12-second cooldown when you have a gold helmet and a 15-second cooldown off of the drop is just amazing. Honestly, you can take height whenever you want pretty much. It's a really good utility to have, and when solo queuing, you're going to be able to dip, dive and duck away from enemies very quickly with this tactical ability. Now of course, as we all know, you have to learn how to kunai flick to become a good Wraith player, and the way to do this is to just spam the inspect button on your kunai if you've got one, and eventually it'll just flick it around pretty crazy. It's not easy to do and it's pretty uncomfortable, and you definitely don't have to learn how to do this to become a good Wraith player. It just looks pretty cool.
Anyway,
before we get into a few more solo queue tips, I briefly want to expand upon why Wraith's hitbox is such an important factor to her being a good legend to use while solo queuing. So we all know while solo queuing, you're likely going to get into a few 1v3 situations, and we all know how hard they can be. Being a small hitbox character is really important in these situations. It's not to say you can't win a 1v3 with a big hitbox character, but being harder to hit is obviously something you definitely want when trying to take on a lot of enemies at once. Not only does Wraith have the smallest hitbox in the game, but when you crouch spam with her, she pretty much halves the size of that hitbox. She really crouches over, unlike a few characters, as you can see, like Crypto here, doesn't quite bend over quite as much as Wraith does, and being such a slim character as she is, that makes her incredibly hard for enemies to hit when you get a little bit of good crouch spam and movement in there. Now, as many of you will know already, one of the key factors to winning your 3v1s in most situations is making sure that you get your enemies in 3 separate 1v1 situations to make life as easy as possible for yourself so that you don't have to juggle fighting 3 people at once. Now, one of the best places to practice this would be the zipline building in Fragment East of Capital City. Yeah, that building that everyone fights in. The reason that loads of people love fighting in this building is because it's so friendly for solo players to separate teams from one another so that they can take individual 1v1 fights. There are so many climb ups, there's a zipline, various different stairs. It's such a crazy building, and definitely one that's really good at helping you learn how to 1v3 effectively. Now, the gun I'd always run if you're solo queuing to take on those 3v1 situations is going to be the Mastiff shotgun, of course. This gun has risen to a really popular place in Season 7. A load of people stand by this gun, and it's because you can potentially 2-tap people with this gun, as it can hit for over 100 damage per shot if you hit the correct shot, and it is just absolutely insane. Practicing with this gun in the firing range is really important as well. You might think, well, how are you going to do that? It's just standard enemies who aren't moving in the firing range, and yes, this is true, but what you can do to actually practice with the Mastiff is to throw down a Gibby bubble and practice your bubble dancing. Because obviously, especially in ranked, we're seeing a ton of Gibraltars as well, and a Gibraltar with a Mastiff in a bubble is a scary prospect, and you need to learn how to effectively bubble dance if you're going to stand any chance fighting these characters. So the best thing to do is to grab a Mastiff with a purple bolt and dip in and out of the bubble, and make sure you're hitting for that 100 damage shot every single time. It's actually a lot harder than you might think, because you have to be very precise to hit for that 100 damage. You can't just luckily hit it, you have to make sure you're hitting directly in the chest. You're also likely to hit for a lot more damage if you ADS with the Mastiff, because it does tighten the spread of the shotgun, but if you're at a super close range where aim assist is not active, because if you didn't know already, there is a range on console at which if you're too close, aim assist deactivates, and if you're at that range, I recommend actually just hip firing, because you're probably more better off having a quicker strafe at that kind of range than having a tighter spread of your shotgun. But that's just personal preference. Maybe you would prefer to ADS as well. Of course, that is just personal preference. Make sure you practice this whilst you're in the firing range as well. But moving back again into an in-game scenario, I want to talk to you quickly about learning how to prioritize what is important to you in-game at a specific moment. This is something that I think is so important in your journey into becoming a better player for Apex Legends, because you see good players do this all the time, but newer players to the game, they're not quite so sure about this, and this is something that I think is so key in the transition into becoming a good player. So one thing you'll notice with a lot of newer players is as soon as they get a kill or get a squad wipe, the first thing they'll do is run to a box and loot for the longest time, and often they miss out on a third party coming in because of this, because they're not quite paying enough attention, and they will die because of this. One of the key skills to becoming a good Apex Legends player is to have a high sense of awareness. You have to know how many enemies are around you at any given time, and you have to keep count of how many enemies you've seen and what skins they're wearing, because honestly, this could be make or break between knowing if you're fighting one team or potentially two or even more teams at any given time. Knowing this is vital in order to become a good player, because if you lose track and lose awareness of how many teams are around you, then you could be caught out looting and not prioritizing the right things at the right moment. So, for example, you could prioritize getting in a box and looting when actually there's a team right next to you who are going to run in and third party you, and if you're not aware at that moment, you could be caught out. As a general rule of thumb, the first thing you should always do after every single fight is to heal up and grab a shield swap from a box, and just cover yourself in case a third party is coming in, because more often than not, as you all know if the way Apex plays, that will be the case. Although it seems obvious to say, you should always prioritize fighting standing enemies over knocked enemies, even if those enemies have a gold knockdown shield, because the last thing you want is to be caught out shooting a downed person whilst there is someone up and alive with a gun in your face. And having this snappy decision making and reactions is make or break between becoming a good player or an average player. You have to be really quick with your decision making in Apex Legends in order to take yourself to that next level. But guys, that is going to be the end for today's video, and I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope these tips help you out just a little bit in improving for Apex Legends Season 7. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content from your boy. Merry Christmas, I'll see you in the next one, take it easy, and goodbye.